My name is Darim Ramatala, and I'm a Director of Product Management at Telus. Today, I'm going to talk to you about maximizing monetization opportunity with the right licensing and data protection strategy. And in the Telus world, we simply call this software monetization. Specifically, I'm going to talk to you about subscriptions and how subscriptions are transforming vendors across the whole industry. Today, we're talking about the context of connected device manufacturers, and the focus is on that. But the beauty of a digital transformation with subscriptions is it's a formula that works for everybody. So it goes across the whole software industry, as well as traditional software vendors, SaaS vendors, and device manufacturers who are, of course, using software to help grow and expand their businesses. Before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about who we are at Telus. So I belong to the Telus Software Monetization Business Unit. We have a product brand family called Sentinel. Ultimately, what we're offering is a collection of technology, products, services, expertise. It's a complete package of offerings that are given to software companies, hardware device manufacturers, any software-driven vendor, ultimately, to help them make more money from their products, right? And who doesn't want to do that, right? So the main thing to think about here is, how do most vendors make more money with their software? They do it by building more capability, by building new features, making the products more valuable to their customers through new capability. What we do at Telus is that we help you to increase that value without building anything new. We do that through giving vendors new ways to license, new ways to price and package, new ways to sell, more creative ways to offer their products to their customers in a way that the customers may actually be more willing to buy, or maybe more willing to expand and increase the size of their partnership to you. The other thing we also do is the other side of the equation, which is we help vendors to save operational costs. Generally, when you become more complex and sophisticated and creative with your licensing, your product costs can go up, your fulfillment costs, your operational costs can go up. So we also have a focus on helping vendors to reduce their operational costs. So essentially, it's a little bit like burning the candle at both sides. So before we get into the details of this presentation, I wanted to really just touch on some industry trends around about why subscription models are essentially a talking point now for pretty much everybody. These are some statistics that we have from IDC, a market leader in software analysis, the analysis of the industry. And let's just go through some of these statistics. Currently, 80% of software vendors, it's estimated, will offer a subscription model today. Now, they may be doing that exclusively, or it may be as a combination of different types of model, maybe a more traditional perpetual model, maybe other types of offer to their customers. But 80% of them will in some way be offering a subscription model today, which is a pretty phenomenal statistic. The pandemic has also been a huge tester for subscriptions and the viability of subscriptions. 80% of customers that are using subscriptions, they still experience revenue growth during the pandemic, during the economical uncertainty. That's a real test for why the subscriptions are so valuable. On the device side, IDC are forecasting that 60% of the world's connected devices will be using a subscription model at some point in their future. More than half of the devices in the world will be based on a subscription model. Again, a fairly phenomenal statistic. And the last point to Mike is that companies that have moved to a subscription, just by moving to subscription, have seen between a 20 and a 50% increase in their revenues. And we'll talk about that, how that happens in a second. Then I just want to talk about how the market has changed, because if you think about the traditional world, how was software offered? How were products offered? It was all about ownership. As a buyer, I would buy a product and I would own that product. And you always talk about the concepts of products and modules and features. What my purchase was a transaction. Typically, that was the only time I even interacted with the vendor, was during the purchase. In the new world, we talk about recurring revenue. In the subscription world, we no longer really talk about products and features. We talk about value. What a customer is buying is value from their vendor, not products and features. We no longer talk about transactions. We talk about relationships, an ongoing commitment between that vendor and that customer. So how do software and smart device vendors need to adapt? And that gives the perception of reduced customer risk, which means that you have access to more customers. It also changes the way you engage with your customers. When you offer your products on a subscription, you need to keep nourishing that customer relationship, because ultimately the customer, like I said before, they can just decide that they're not going to continue with the subscription if they don't feel it's working out for them. So it changes the nature of the relationship. You're no longer winning that customer once, i.e. when you sell the product to them, you need to keep winning them. You need to keep impressing them. And that in turn changes the way you ultimately release your products. In a more traditional world, products are being released maybe once a year, maybe once every year and a half, something like that. With a subscription-driven business, you need to keep releasing incremental value to customers. You need to keep winning them. You need to keep impressing them. So generally, it drives a more frequent release cycle with smaller, more incremental releases, coming out to the customer each time. We can't really talk about subscriptions unless we also talk about data. Data is a big part in the connected world. We know this, right? Every connected device has the ability to capture data and send that data back to some central location. This is a perfect combination in the world of software monetization, because you can leverage data to determine if you have the right monetization strategy. So ultimately, we call this listening to your products. So it's a little bit different to listening to your customers. It's looking at the data of how the products are being used. So you capture usage metrics from the products and the devices. Within those metrics, you measure specifically the usage patterns, specific modules, the modules that you've identified as being monetized, or things that you charge for, and chargeable features. You see how these modules are being used over time. You see whether there's those models are they being used in a predictable way? Are you seeing some unexpected results from this data, for example? And the point being is you use this data to then adjust your monetization strategy. In the simplest case, maybe customers don't like a 1-year subscription term. Maybe they would rather a monthly subscription term. Maybe the packages that you've chosen to use are not suitable for the customer. Maybe they need a different combination of features and modules would be their perfect package. Having a subscription business helps you to do this, because you can change. You have many opportunities to redeploy, redistribute, and resend. When it's a perpetual model, you don't have this opportunity, anything like this well. We also need to talk about the integration stack. To do a subscription effectively, you need to have a well-integrated operational backend to your business. And this is because the transaction rate is higher. In the center of your world, you would have a workflow called entitlement management and licensing. To many of you, this may be very familiar. This is the center point of all of the other operational workflows, and they all need to be talking to each other, and they all need to be integrated. The CRM system, the customer details, the customer transactions, the orders all need to feed through into the entitlement management system. billing also needs to feed into the entitlement management system. And the reason why you need good integration here, and you will struggle if you have manual processes, is because your transactions are happening more often. It's not just one transaction when you sell the product. It's multiple transactions as customers are renewing, as they're changing their agreement, as they're upgrading, as they're downgrading, as they're modifying. So there's a frequent cycle of transactions with the customer. And of course, if your subscription term is only a month long, you've got a new interaction with every single one of your customers every month. So you need that automation in place for this to work. If you don't, the business can't scale, and the business will not be able to grow as fast as ultimately the subscription license model will allow it to grow. This is a model that we also talk about called the fish model. This was put together by a company called Zuora. These guys are experts in billing. They're the market leader in billing in the industry. And they came up with this model that has been pretty much the holy grail within the subscription transformation industry, is that over a period of time, your costs will go down. Your costs will increase once you start your subscription transformation, and your revenue will also go down. You can see the line here of revenue. And once you get past this vertical line here at the beginning, this is the beginning of your transformation. The revenue starts to go down and your costs will start to go up. This is a completely anticipated and expected consequence of going through this transition. You're no longer selling your products at a very high one-time price. You're selling it at a lower entry point for the subscriptions, which will result in a dip in your revenues. You're investing in new capabilities, back-end automation, so your costs will go up. At some point in the future, these lines will cross again, and you will start growing your revenue, especially as your subscriptions are being renewed, and you see you have access to new customers that you didn't have before. And as the automation investment starts to take effect, your operating costs will go lower. So you will always end up with this dip. And this is really, really important to know, because many companies don't expect this. And this is why so many transformations fail, because they believe that they've done something wrong. They believe that they made a mistake, and they stop the process. The main point of this message is to make sure that you anticipate that this fish is going to happen. The best outcome is that you have the thinnest and shortest possible fish. And if you feel like something's gone wrong because of this fish, then you're at risk of just simply pulling the plug on the whole project. Many companies have done it like this. I've done this. So I just want to close this by talking about what we call the 7 key steps to a successful transition. The main things you need to think about is alignment, making sure that everybody within the organization is aligned. I'll give you one example here. Sales groups within your company, they will be compensated differently. They may push back on a transition to a subscription model because they think they're going to get paid less. So you need to change the way sales are compensated, and you need to make sure that every organization is aligned before this starts. Related to that, you need to implement a centralized governance structure. You need a team that is responsible for driving this within the organization, for pushing the alignment, for essentially taking a thought leadership and an influencing role within the organization to get everybody agreed that this is what's going to happen. Agree revised KPIs. For example, like I said, sales KPIs and targets need to be changed. Ensure a single integrated platform, like I talked before. You need as much automation as possible, because this is what will ensure that you can scale when your business suddenly starts to grow, as it will do. Decide on the right deployment strategy based on your business. Will you do this all in one? Right? Will you do all your products in one go? Will you do this incrementally? There's no right answer to this. This depends on the nature of your business, the nature of your customers, the nature of your products. Generally, with hardware-based devices that have no separate software components, easier to do it all in one go. With software-based components, doing it more incrementally may make more sense to you. Ensure that you've refined the end-to-end processes and the policies. Again, this is related to the alignment with the groups, with all the different organizations, all the different parts of your organization. And also make sure that you've developed an effective field change management process. This is really, really important because a subscription business is by its nature more experimental. You can try, you have the freedom to try different things. You have the freedom to pilot ideas more effectively than if you have a more traditional perpetual business. For that to work, you need to have effective change management. You need to be able to change trajectory. You might have not made the right decision. You might have made the perfect decision. Doesn't really matter which one of those, as long as you've got the ability to adjust and adapt. So you need to change the nature of the business. You need to change the almost the psychology of the business so that you are more change willing rather than change averse. Okay, then that's pretty much it. I just want to conclude this by letting you know that we are a global company. So we have offices across the region. If you would like to contact us and understand more, and if you want to learn more about how we've been helping companies go through these digital transformations, we've been doing it for software companies, for hardware companies, for SaaS companies. Like I said at the beginning, this is the beauty of this formula, is it applies to everybody. Digital transformation is not something which is unique to a specific business or industry. Digital transformation is being done across the world. And it's that you can reuse the same formula, you can reuse the same rules and the same experiences. What is great for you in that scenario is that it means that you have a very wide scrutiny, a very wide audience that is taking these steps and being able to get a success from it. That's it. So you've got the contact details here. The web page there as well. You can take a look at. And just to say one more thing is, I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this. Thank you.